the discovery. The stars had always seemed so peaceful from Earth. For 2 centuries, humanity had gazed upward with wonder, dreaming of the day they would join the cosmic community. When first contact finally came, it felt like a dream realized. The Galactic Assembly welcomed Earth with open arms, offering trade agreements, technological exchanges, and a seat at the table of civilized worlds. Ambassador Marcus Webb had spent 5 years representing humanity in that grand hall. He had learned their languages, studied their customs, and played the political games required of a diplomat. He thought he understood how the galaxy worked. He thought he knew the rules. He was wrong. The message that changed everything. The distress beacon came from the edge of human space, from a mining colony called New Hope. The colony had gone silent 3 months earlier. The official report from the Kaldrith Empire stated that a reactor malfunction had destroyed the settlement. 2,000 colonists lost, including 400 children. Earth mourned. Memorials were held. Families grieved. But then a smuggler named Tariq Hassan, a human who traded in the gray markets of the Outer Rim, stumbled upon something that would ignite a firestorm. His ship had been damaged, forcing him to dock at an unmarked station in Kaldrith space for repairs. While waiting, he noticed something strange. Children's voices. Human children's voices. Tariq was a rough man who had seen much of the galaxy's darkness, but what he discovered in the lower decks of that station broke something inside him. Behind reinforced doors and cramped dormitories that reeked of fear and despair, he found them. Human children, wearing tattered clothing marked with identification numbers. Their small hands were scarred from labor. Their eyes held an emptiness that no child should ever know. He recorded everything. Every face. Every scar. Every cage. Then he ran. He ran faster than he had ever run before, his ship pushing beyond safe limits because he knew what he carried could start a war. The truth unveiled. When Tariq's footage reached Earth, the planet stopped. Every news network broadcast the images simultaneously. The world watched in horror as the truth unfolded. The children from New Hope were not dead. They had been taken, stolen, sold into slavery by the Kaldrith Empire and distributed across their industrial operations. The Kaldrith had chosen human children specifically. Their small size made them perfect for navigating tight mining shafts. Their dexterity allowed them to perform delicate equipment repairs. Their resilience, that stubborn human trait of surviving against all odds, meant they lasted longer than other species in harsh conditions. 400 children. The youngest was 5 years old. The oldest was 14. They had been working in mines, factories, and processing plants for 3 months. 3 months of darkness and fear and pain. General Hassan al-Rashid watched the footage in his office at Earth Defense Command. He was a decorated soldier who had seen combat on 3 continents. He had witnessed atrocities that would haunt him forever. But this was different. These were children, human children, and they were screaming for help in a language the aliens could not understand, crying for parents who thought they were dead. He picked up his phone and made a single call to the Global Security Council. His voice was steady, but his hands shook with rage. We need to mobilize now. The Council of Worlds Ambassador Webb stood before the Galactic Assembly 3 days after the footage surfaced. The Grand Chamber held representatives from 93 different civilizations, species that had evolved on worlds humanity could barely imagine. The architecture was designed to inspire awe, with holographic displays showing the vastness of their collective territories. Webb had prepared a speech. He had written it carefully, using diplomatic language and proper protocols. He had planned to appeal to their sense of justice, to cite the various treaties and agreements that should have protected those children. He threw that speech away. Instead, he simply played the footage. All 47 minutes of it. The assembly watched in silence as human children were herded like animals, as they cried themselves to sleep on cold metal floors, as they were punished for working too slowly or eating too much. When the footage ended, the silence stretched for a long moment. Then Overlord Thexaron of the Kaldrith Empire rose to speak. He was a massive creature standing nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that shimmered like oil and eyes that saw in spectrums humans could not perceive. The human ambassador presents a touching display, Thexaron said, his translator rendering his words in perfect English. However, he misunderstands the situation. The colony of New Hope was located in disputed territory. Under Galactic Law, Section 47, Subsection 12, any inhabitants of disputed zones are classified as unaffiliated entities. Their acquisition and utilization for labor purposes is entirely legal. Webb felt his blood turn to ice. Legal! Quite legal, confirmed Magistrate Vrel, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline matrix. Her species were the keepers of galactic law, and her word was considered absolute. The Kaldrith Empire has operated within established parameters. While the situation is regrettable, it does not constitute a violation. The human response Webb stood very still. Those who knew him well would have recognized the warning signs. His hands, normally expressive during conversation, hung motionless at his sides. His face, usually warm and open, had become an expressionless mask. His voice when he spoke was barely above a whisper. Regrettable, he repeated. You find the enslavement of 400 children regrettable. Ambassador Webb, Magistrate Vrel said with what might have been sympathy, we understand this is emotional for your species. However, the law must be applied consistently. If we make exceptions based on sentiment, the entire framework of galactic civilization would collapse. Webb nodded slowly. I see. Then let me be clear about Earth's position. He pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Throughout the chamber, holographic displays appeared showing real-time footage from Earth. The assembly watched as every major city on the planet erupted in coordinated action. Millions of people flooded the streets, not in riot or chaos, but in organized purpose. Recruitment centers were being established. Shipyards that had been idle were roaring to life. Factories were retooling for wartime production. What you are seeing, Webb said calmly, is the mobilization of Earth's entire population. In the past 72 hours, we have received 47 million volunteers for our military forces. That number is still climbing. Every civilian ship capable of space travel is being converted for troop transport. Every engineer, every scientist, every programmer is working on a single goal. Thexaron's laugh was like grinding stone. You threaten the Kaldrith Empire with your primitive fleet? We have crushed civilizations far more advanced than yours. You possess 18 warships. We command over 4,000. Your technology is centuries behind ours. This is madness. You're right, Webb agreed. We cannot match your military might. We cannot overcome your technological superiority. We cannot win a conventional war against you. He paused, and his next words were spoken with absolute certainty. But we don't need to win. We just need to get our children back. The ultimatum Webb pulled up another display, this one showing a star map with thousands of marked locations throughout Kaldrith space. In the past 3 days, humanity has done what we do best. We have shared information. Every hacker, every intelligence analyst, every corporate spy who has ever operated in the shadows has pooled their knowledge. We now know the location of every Kaldrith military installation, every government facility, every industrial complex. He zoomed in on specific points. We know where your leaders live. We know your supply routes. We know your security protocols. We know this because we asked our entire population to help, and they did. 8 billion humans working together can accomplish remarkable things when properly motivated. The assembly stirred uneasily. This was unprecedented. New species typically spent decades learning galactic politics before attempting any bold moves. Humanity had been part of the assembly for barely 5 years. Here is Earth's position. Webb continued. You have 48 hours to return every single child to human custody, unharmed, healthy, with full medical and psychological care provided, every single one. And if we refuse? Thexaron asked, though his confidence seemed to waver slightly. Then we come get them ourselves, Webb said simply, and we will not stop. Not for your fleets, not for your weapons, not for your laws. We will throw every ship, every soldier, every civilian volunteer at your empire until either we have our children back or there is nothing left of us to throw, because that is what humans do when you threaten our young. We do not calculate odds. We do not consider costs. We simply fight until we win or we die trying. He looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Some looked shocked. Others looked skeptical. A few, the ones whose species also raised their young with fierce protective instinct, looked understanding. You call us weak, Webb said. You call us primitive. You call us insignificant. You might be right about all of that. But you made one critical mistake. You took our children. And now you are going to learn what happens when you threaten the young of a species that evolved as persistence hunters. We do not give up. We do not quit. We do not stop. He turned to leave, then paused at the chamber door. 48 hours. The clock is already ticking. Choose wisely. As Webb walked out, the Galactic Assembly erupted in debate. But Overlord Thexaron sat in silence, watching the holographic displays of Earth's mobilization. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced in all his conquests across the stars. He felt afraid. The Reckoning, the Kuldrith Empire, did not respond to Earth's ultimatum. They did not return the children. They did not even acknowledge the threat. Instead, Overlord Thexaron joined his war council and prepared for what he assumed would be a brief and decisive conflict. After all, how much damage could a primitive species really inflict? He would soon discover the answer. Operation Starlight begins 48 hours and 17 minutes after Ambassador Webb's ultimatum expired. The largest fleet in human history departed from Earth's orbital staging areas. It was not a fleet in any traditional military sense. There were only 22 actual warships, their hulls bristling with weapons that were laughably outdated by galactic standards. But behind those warships came something the galaxy had never seen before. 73,000 civilian vessels, cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining ships, corporate yachts, even converted fishing trawlers that had been retrofitted with basic life support for void travel. Each ship carried volunteers, ordinary people who had left their jobs and families to answer a simple call. Bring the children home. Captain Sarah Chen commanded the civilian fleet from a converted container ship called the Persistent Hope. She was a cargo pilot by trade, a woman who had spent 20 years hauling supplies between Earth's colonies. She had no military training. She had never fired a weapon in anger, but her own daughter had attended school with 3 of the children from New Hope, and that was all the qualification she needed. This is Captain Chen to all vessels. She broadcast across the fleet's communication network. We are now entering Kuldrith space. They will try to stop us. They will threaten us. They will tell us to turn back. We will not. Remember why we are here. Remember who we are fighting for. Stay together. Stay strong, and we will bring our children home. 73,000 voices responded in unison. Bring them home. The Empire's first mistake. The Kuldrith military detected the human fleet immediately. It was impossible to miss. 73,000 ships did not travel subtly. Admiral Kreshtok, commander of the Empire's border defense fleet, watched the approaching vessels with a mixture of amusement and disdain. They actually came, he said to his tactical officer. The mad creatures actually came with their cargo ships and their mining vessels. What do they think they will accomplish? Orders, Admiral? His officer asked. Deploy warning buoys. Tell them to turn back or be destroyed. When they refuse, destroy the lead vessels. That should send them running back to their little blue planet. But Admiral Kreshtok had made a critical error. He had assumed humans thought like Kuldrith, who valued individual survival above collective goals. He did not understand that every human in that fleet had already made peace with the possibility of death. They were not there to survive. They were there to succeed. When the warning buoys activated, broadcasting threats in multiple languages, the human fleet did not slow down. They did not alter course. They simply kept coming. Admiral Kreshtok ordered his ships to open fire. Kuldrith warships, each one capable of destroying a city, unleashed devastating barrages against the approaching civilian vessels. The first 3 ships in the human formation were vaporized instantly. Then 5 more. Then a dozen. And still they came. They are not stopping, Kreshtok's tactical officer reported, his voice rising with confusion. We have destroyed 19 vessels and they are not even slowing down. The others are simply moving to fill the gaps. Captain Chen watched her sensors as ships around her died. She watched as the Morning Star, carrying 200 volunteers from Brazil, disappeared in a flash of fire. She watched as the New Beginning, piloted by a retired schoolteacher from Japan, broke apart under sustained bombardment. All ships maintain formation, she commanded, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her heart. They cannot stop all of us. For every ship they destroy, 73,000-1 keep moving. We are not an army. We are a tide, and tides do not stop. Human ingenuity unleashed. General Hassan al-Rashid watched the battle unfold from Earth's command center. He saw the losses mounting and felt each one like a knife to his heart. But he also saw something else. He saw the Kuldrith fleet beginning to falter, not from damage but from confusion. The Kuldrith had never fought an enemy like this. Their wars were conducted by professional militaries following established tactical doctrines. They understood how to fight fleets, how to target command ships, how to break morale. But humanity was not following any doctrine. The civilian ships were not organized into standard military formations. They had no clear command structure to disrupt, and their morale could not be broken because every single person in that fleet had volunteered knowing they might die. Phase 2, General al-Rashid ordered. Deploy the packages. Throughout the human fleet, seemingly random cargo ships began releasing small objects into space. Thousands of them, tens of thousands. They looked like simple cargo containers tumbling through the void without power or guidance. The Kuldrith sensors detected them but dismissed them as debris or jettisoned supplies. They were too small to be weapons, too numerous to be worth targeting individually. They were wrong. Each cargo container was actually a delivery system designed by a collaborative effort of civilian engineers, corporate researchers, and amateur inventors who had worked around the clock for 3 days. Inside each container was something beautifully simple: a high-velocity kinetic impactor with basic guidance systems and just enough fuel for a single course correction. The Kuldrith shields were designed to stop energy weapons and conventional missiles. They were not designed to stop thousands of dumb projectiles traveling at relativistic speeds. The first impacts tore through the shield generators of the Kuldrith flagship. The next wave crippled the engines of 3 cruisers. Within minutes, Admiral Kreshtak's mighty fleet was reeling from an attack delivered by what amounted to sophisticated rocks thrown very, very hard. Impossible, Kreshtak whispered as his systems failed around him. How are they doing this? The answer was simple. Humans had taken the oldest weapon in their arsenal, the thrown rock, and adapted it for space warfare. It was not elegant. It was not sophisticated. But it worked. The rescue. While the Kuldrith military scrambled to respond to the human fleet, something else was happening throughout their empire. Small teams of human operatives, many of them former military but just as many being civilians with useful skills, were infiltrating the locations where the children were held. Dr. Maya Okonkwo led one such team to a mining facility on Kuldrith Prime's third moon. She was a child psychologist, not a soldier, but she had insisted on being part of the rescue teams. Someone needed to be there who understood how to help traumatized children, and she had volunteered without hesitation. Her team disabled the facility's security systems using methods that would have embarrassed any professional cyber warfare unit. They had simply bribed underpaid Kuldrith technicians, impersonated maintenance workers, and in one case convinced a guard that his supervisor had authorized their access. Social engineering on a scale that the security-conscious Kuldrith had never imagined possible. When they reached the children's dormitory, Dr. Okonkwo's heart nearly broke. 23 children, their faces gaunt and their eyes hollow, stared at the strange humans in improvised combat gear with a mixture of hope and fear. "We're here to take you home," Dr. Okonkwo said softly, kneeling to be at eye level with them. "Your parents sent us. Earth sent us. You are safe now." A small girl no more than 6 years old stepped forward cautiously. Her name tag read, Emma Rodriguez, Unit 247. Dr. Okonkwo gently removed the tag and dropped it on the floor. "You are not a unit," she said firmly. "You are Emma Rodriguez. You are a child. You are a human being, and you are going home." Emma began to cry. Then all 23 children were crying, and Dr. Okonkwo's team was gathering them up, wrapping them in thermal blankets, giving them water and kind words and the promise that the nightmare was finally over. This scene repeated itself across dozens of Kuldrith facilities. Sometimes the rescues went smoothly, sometimes there was resistance and blood was spilled, but the human teams kept coming, kept searching, kept fighting until they found every single child. The breaking point overlord. Thexarin watched his empire's defenses crumble with growing horror. The human fleet had penetrated deep into Kuldrith space, suffering terrible losses but never stopping, never retreating. His military installations were being sabotaged. His communication networks were compromised. His own government officials were receiving personal messages from human operatives, telling them exactly where their families were, Exactly what would happen if the children were not released unharmed. It was not warfare as he understood it. It was total commitment to a single goal, executed with ruthless efficiency despite humanity's technological disadvantages. He activated his direct communication line to Ambassador Webb, who was still stationed at the Galactic Assembly. "Stop this," Thexarin demanded. "We will return the children. Just call off your forces." Webb's response was cold. "The children should already be on their way home. Instead, you spent 48 hours preparing for war. How many of them have been harmed in the chaos you created? How many are more traumatized because you chose pride over mercy?" "We are releasing them now," Thexarin insisted. "All of them. They will be returned to human custody within hours. Just please stop the attacks." "Our forces will stop," Webb said, "when every child is confirmed safe and accounted for, when our medical teams have examined them, when we are certain you have not hidden even one child away out of spite. Until then, Captain Chen and her fleet will continue their advance. And Overlord, I suggest you pray that all 400 children are alive and well, because if we find even one body, if we discover even one child who died because of your delays, then what you have seen so far will seem like mercy compared to what comes next." The return 6 days after Operation Starlight began, the last of the children were recovered. The final count showed 397 survivors. 3 children had died before the rescue operations could reach them, victims of the harsh conditions and cruel treatment they had endured. Earth mourned those 3 losses with a grief that shook the entire planet. But they also celebrated the 397 who had been brought home. Ships returning to Earth were met with crowds numbering in the millions. Families reunited in scenes of joy and tears that were broadcast across every human settlement in space. The human fleet, battered and reduced to fewer than 40,000 surviving vessels, limped back to Earth as heroes. Captain Sarah Chen, her ship scarred by weapons fire but still flying, led them home. She had lost friends in the operation. She had seen horrors she would never forget. But she had also seen humanity at its best, ordinary people doing extraordinary things because children needed saving. The galaxy learns. The Galactic Assembly met in emergency session to discuss the human action. Some called it an act of war that should result in Earth's expulsion. Others argued that the Kaldrith had provoked the response through their illegal slavery operations, law or no law. Ambassador Webb listened to the debates with patient silence. When he finally spoke, his words were measured and clear. "The Galactic Assembly has rules," he said. "Laws, procedures, we understand that. We will respect that going forward. But understand this in return. Humanity has a rule that supersedes all others. Do not harm our children. If you do, we will come for them. We will not ask permission. We will not wait for legal proceedings. We will come and we will bring them home, and nothing in this galaxy will stop us." He looked around the chamber. "You may pass whatever resolutions you wish. You may impose sanctions or issue condemnations. But you have all seen what happens when you threaten human children. We become something you do not want to face. We become relentless. We become unstoppable. We become a force of nature that cares nothing for your technology or your military might or your ancient empires." Magistrate Vrel, the keeper of galactic law, spoke softly. "You have shown us something today, Ambassador Webb. You have shown us that sometimes the law must change to reflect morality rather than tradition. The Galactic Assembly will be revising our policies regarding contested territories and the treatment of inhabitants thereof." Webb nodded. "That is good. Because if you do not, we will simply ignore your laws whenever they conflict with our values. We would prefer to work within your system, but we will not sacrifice our children on the altar of bureaucratic convenience." Epilogue 10 years later, Emma Rodriguez stood before a classroom of young children on Mars Colony. She was a teacher now, specializing in helping kids who had experienced trauma. The scars on her hands had faded, but they were still visible reminders of 3 months spent in darkness. "Why do we celebrate Liberation Day?" a small boy asked her. Emma smiled. "Because it reminds us what humanity is capable of when we work together. It reminds us that we protect each other, especially the vulnerable. And it reminds the galaxy that we are not a species to be underestimated." She looked out the window at the stars beyond. Out there, among all those civilizations and empires, they remember what happened when they took human children. They remember that we did not ask for permission to save our own. We simply did what needed to be done. And that memory, that understanding keeps all our children safer. The boy nodded thoughtfully. Because they know we will come for them. Always, Emma confirmed. No matter how far, no matter how dangerous, we will always come for our children. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us strong. Not our weapons or our technology, but our absolute refusal to abandon each other. Especially the smallest and most vulnerable among us. She turned back to the class. Now, who wants to hear about the brave pilots who flew cargo ships against battlecruisers? Every hand shot up, and across human space, 400 worlds remembered the lesson that the galaxy had learned 10 years ago. You could conquer humanity. You could defeat their fleets. You could occupy their planets. But you could never ever take their children and expect to survive the consequences. That was the rule. That was the line. And the stars themselves bore witness to what happened when that line was crossed.